Good afternoon, everyone. Well, you've made it. It's the last talk of the last session of the last day, and I'm sure your brains are all swimming with incredibly interesting insights from across the last 2 days. So we're going to keep this short and sweet at 10 minutes maximum. I'm Anne Tucker, Head of Research at Mediatel, and this is Richard Marks, Director of Research the Media. The big question, which has cropped up a number of times over the last couple of days, is the impact of the tranche of new SVOD services that have just launched or are about to launch. That means a battle for content, but also a fight for people's hard-earned subscription money. Is there enough money, is there enough room, rather, for everyone, or is SVOD at the tipping point? So, appropriately enough, we are going to give the last word at this conference to the consumers themselves. All the research you see today is taken from Mediatel's established Connected Screens Tracker survey, available exclusively within Mediatel's Connected Surveys module, which acts as a search engine for media consumer trends. The Connected Screens Tracker analyses which screens people have and then works out what they are actually doing with them. It's media neutral and consumer-centric, covering every screen. And running at least every 6 months since 2014, we analyse a universe base of over 2,000 adults each wave, aged 16 plus in UK broadband homes. It swiftly established a reputation for robust and relevant data for the UK market. So, let's do some scene setting. Currently, 38% of UK broadband households report having access to Netflix, following a steady increase in its footprint, more than double when we started in 2014. By comparison, Amazon Prime Video is currently in 25% of households, despite having the advantage of being linked to the free delivery option that's so vital to Amazon's strategy. Looking at media streaming services purely for comparison, Spotify gets the lion's share of the streams in the UK market, with Apple Music very flat since launch. The television set itself has increasingly become the screen of choice for SVOD viewing, with 42% of respondents now watching SVOD on a TV screen at least once a week, leaving other screens behind in its wake. This ties in with the trends highlighted by Matt O'Grady at the start of this session on Netflix viewing volumes. We've been studying the marketplace for 5 years now, and we wanted to get a better understanding of how consumers feel these screen services are impacting their actual lives. For this latest wave, we added new questions around activities relating to SVOD subscriptions and price. So what you're about to see is an exclusive first reveal. 1,000 UK respondents in broadband homes interviewed over the past few months. With the data hot off the presses, no one else has seen this yet, so aren't you pleased that you stayed? This exclusive data comprises half the current Fieldworks data, and the full data set will be available and released into Mediatel Connected in the new year. But for now, here's your sneak peek. So we asked our respondents what impact they felt social media, online video services, and online TV services were having on both society and their own personal life, and the results proved very interesting. Taking a traffic light approach, reds on the charts are either very negative or quite negative, whilst greens are quite or very positive. And at a quick glance, you see that the respondents considered that social media had had a predominantly negative impact on society, with 43% considering it negative and 18% thinking it had a negative effect on their own life personally. Meanwhile, online video services such as YouTube were either positive or neutral, with no massive detrimental impact on society or personal life, whilst online TV services have had a positive effect on our personal lives and on society as a whole, and only 1% thinking they had a very negative impact on society. So clearly we're all fans of SVOD. We don't think it's damaging us, and many of us are capitalising on interesting methods of accessing content, which we'll come to shortly. So let's see how our sample reacted to a few hypotheses we threw at them, and here's the first. Perhaps worryingly for satellite and cable providers, whilst SVOD has up to now largely complemented rather than replaced pay TV, it seemed as a potential money-saving alternative. Separating that out into types of pay TV homes, it becomes apparent that is particularly the case for those who only use Netflix. In other words, SVOD is enough for them. The perception by respondents is that they are currently saving money by subscribing to these VOD services rather than buying or renting DVDs. But if you go back 20 years when I was working at HMV, DVDs were easily £12 to £15 a pop, and once you bought it, you owned it. And if I subscribe to Netflix for a month, I get to watch that video as many times as I like whilst I'm a subscriber. But if I cancel, there goes that content. I never get to watch it again, whereas the DVD stays on the shelf forever, collecting dust. So will this perception that SVOD is cheaper than physical media allow more price elasticity? Well, not necessarily, as the perception is that if they add all their media expenditure together, including all those DVDs they were paying for 10 years ago, they believe they are paying more in total on media now. I think Richard would love to sit down with each of them and contest that, but at the end of the day, it is the perception rather than the reality that matters. So do consumers subscribe tactically to binge-specific content? Over half of respondents do not currently capitalise on switching between services as much as they could, with 51% disagreeing that they ever subscribe for a short period and then cancel. However, this guy on Twitter is all for this sort of activity, setting his calendar around the cancellation dates. And at that, I'll hand over to Richard.
Thanks. Thanks, Anne. Well, Netflix and Prime Video, as you know, allow simultaneous use of different screens. And Netflix is notoriously tolerant at the moment of password sharing as a means of increasing reach and potential new subscribers. And I can reveal that 27% of our SVOD users let friends and family outside the home use their password. And with a pleasing logical symmetry you don't always get in survey research, 27% said they used the password from outside the home. So password sharing is common, and at least from our data, the levels are actually pretty similar between Netflix and Amazon Prime. Now, there's only so much money in people's pockets for these services, so just how much price elasticity is there in the UK market? And I have been practicing the word elasticity because it doesn't come well to me. There's an increasing awareness, certainly, of how much these services are costing. 43% of respondents agreed that they're regularly reviewing how much they're spending on these TV and video services. We did have a version of this presentation in which John Burko popped up and said the ayes have it or the nays have it, but we didn't think that would translate to an international audience. So 43% of people agreed that they're regularly reviewing how much they're spending on these services. Arguably, with less spontaneous or impulse purchasing on physical media, it's easier to tot up the total that we spend on subscriptions each month. All those impulse purchases we used to make and forget about are hidden inside subscriptions, which are easier to track. 39% of those with subscriptions to pay TV or SVOD services are actively cutting back. Whoops, went too far there. Are actually cutting back in terms of the services they're subscribing to. So there is a degree of price awareness and some desire to limit their expenditure. And in our final set of questions and the last bit of data you'll see across this epic 2 days of charts, we're going to look at the more specific questions about what they think they're paying and what they're willing to pay. Firstly, we asked how much respondents thought they were paying on a monthly basis specifically for the TV part of their subscription service. Now, clearly it's hard to extract the broadband and any telephony service prices from a monthly bill, so we've kept these bands deliberately wide. We didn't want to go for a spurious degree of guessed accuracy. But the most common range that people spend is between £20 and £39 each month on TV and video services, with the average slightly higher than that, unsurprisingly driven by Sky subscribers. In fact, 30% of Sky subscribers claim to be paying more than £60 a month just for the TV and related element. Now, when Netflix or Prime subscribers are asked how much they're currently paying in total, the most common answer is between £10 and £19. Again, that kind of makes sense because it's actually the current combined total of both services. Some estimate they're paying more than this, but note that this is before the launch of Apple TV Plus and Disney Plus. We're going to add those into the survey and we'll watch what impact they have on those figures. So, the key question, what is the most that people are willing to pay for a single SVOD service? This question is asked of all with pay TV or SVOD, so it does include some potential users as well as current subscribers. Perhaps a note of caution is warranted here. Anyone who's been involved in pricing research will know that interviewees tend to wise up to what's going on, and this will get back to someone. So they don't tend to admit too readily to wanting to pay more. But nonetheless, much has been written about £10 as being some sort of a key threshold, and our consumers certainly confirm that. Clearly, some will pay more, but that is a minority. Significantly, the answer is near identical for Netflix or Amazon Prime subscribers. So £10 seems key. That expectation about what an SVOD service should cost is reflected certainly in the conservative pricing of the newer entrants. In the UK, Apple TV Plus is at $4.99, BritBox at $5.99, and Disney Plus strongly rumoured to be coming in at $6.99. Presumably, all of them realise that, at least initially, they will be a supplementary SVOD service for many. So, to sum up, and we promised we wouldn't overstay our welcome, to sum up this early snapshot of our findings from the UK, password sharing is common, with 27% lending or borrowing their login. A minority do dive in and out for specific content tactically, but there is a fair degree of inertia. Perhaps it's all those episodes of The Office and Friends that Matt was talking about earlier that they can fall back on when there isn't a big release. There is an awareness that streaming saves money versus physical media, but still most believe they're paying more on media services than they were a few years ago. As a result, many are looking to cut back and claim to review their spending on TV and video services. They're fairly knowledgeable about what they pay for SVOD, and £10 per month is confirmed as the glass ceiling, at least in the UK, for a single streaming service. So the key question, tying back to the middle section of this whole afternoon, is whether advertising-free SVOD services are economically sustainable at a price point of less than £10 or $10. Will a hybrid model be needed involving advertising, or is the lack of advertising actually a key element of the offer in the first place? Meanwhile, just a final thought. I also consult in the publishing industry with newspapers and magazines, and recently interviewed a senior exec who said that Netflix had been a key development for the publishing industry, as it got consumers used to the idea of a media subscription, something that news brands have been banging their heads against the wall for the last decade, trying to get people used to, and are now finally seeing success. However, their concern now is whether the competitive set has widened. With all your subscriptions handily listed on the same bank statement, will people review not just their SVOD subscriptions together, but all their subscriptions on a wider basis? Their music streaming, their publications, even their arts or their tech subscriptions. So if we're moving from physical to digital, from ownership to access, and so to a world of subscriptions, is the price pressure about to get a whole lot heavier? So, thanks for your time, and if you'd like to know more about Mediatel's connected surveys, please do get in touch with Anne or myself. And that's it for the whole day, I think.